Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to Outdoor and Door Texan. Today I'm going to show y'all my recipe for homemade alligator jerky. Now, gator meat is a relatively mild tasting protein that soaks up seasoning and marinades really well. Also, the meat is extremely lean, which makes it perfect for jerky making. I'm guessing you already have gator meat on hand if you're looking up how to make gator jerky on the internet, but just in case you don't, a quick Google will turn up a number of specialty butcher shops who can ship the meat to you next day. One I constantly hear about but have no affiliation with is the Cajun grocer, so check them out if you're looking for some. We're starting this recipe out with 1 pound of tenderized alligator tail meat that I got from a gator hunt I was fortunate enough to be invited on. This tail meat has been cut into chunks and then hammered flat and tenderized. The most important aspect of prepping your meat for jerky is just making sure that you have uniform thickness so everything dehydrates at the same time. Now we're going to marinate this meat overnight so it has plenty of time to soak in all these flavors. So first things first, toss your meat into a Ziploc bag. Add a 1/4 cup of finely diced white onion, 1/2 cup of soy sauce, 1/2 cup of Worcestershire sauce, and 2 to 3 cloves of minced garlic. Now we're going to add the dry spices, which are primarily made up of the flavor notes you'd expect in a Cajun spice blend. We have 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of red chili flakes, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of cayenne. And finally, I'm tossing in a few tablespoons of Crystal hot sauce. If you don't have Crystal on hand, any basic Louisiana style hot sauce should be totally fine. Make sure the marinade is well mixed up, get as much air out of the bag as possible, and most importantly, situate it where every piece of meat is fully submerged in the liquid. Toss it in your fridge, and we'll come back tomorrow to pick up where we left off. Okay, it's been about 24 hours. The meat is very well marinated at this point, and I went ahead and took the pieces out and laid them flat on a paper towel lined pan. Using a big wad of paper towels, press each piece flat and soak up as much of the excess marinade as possible. This helps with 2 things. 1, it flattens the meat one more time, making uniform thickness. And 2, since we're about to dehydrate this meat, getting as much liquid out beforehand gives the process a helpful head start. Finally, before we start dehydrating, I decided to cover half of the meat with some seasoning I recently made that consists of dehydrated scorpion chilies, garlic powder, paprika, cracked pepper, and just a touch of salt. I just like spicy foods, so I thought it'd be fun to mess around a bit. You're welcome to use any seasoning of choice for this portion. Some examples would be crushed red pepper, simple cracked pepper, lemon pepper, your favorite low salt barbecue seasoning, or use nothing at all since the meat has already had a long marinade in the fridge. If you do end up sprinkling something over your meat at this point, make sure to press the seasoning into the meat with a paper towel. This final pass will help keep that seasoning stuck on the meat even after it's dehydrated. Up next, we'll be dehydrating the meat. And yes, I'll be using a dehydrator. But before those who don't have one click off, you can just as easily use your kitchen oven, and I'll quickly talk you through those basic steps. Set your oven to its lowest possible heat setting, ideally around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. If your oven doesn't quite make it that low, set it to your lowest setting and keep the door cracked open. As far as placement is concerned, lay the meat on a wire rack set over the grates. Or, if you don't have a wire rack, just lay them directly over the grates with a drip fan beneath them to catch any excess liquids. Check on it very often and pull it off when it's as jerky as you want it to be. Now, onto the dehydrator. I'm using a Nesco food dehydrator, and it has been bulletproof for the last 5 or so years I've had it. If you've been looking around for a good, reliable dehydrator, I'll make sure to leave the Amazon link in the comments below for this particular model. Start layering the meat onto the dehydrator trays, and the big important tip for this part of the process is to make sure none of the meat is touching and everything has plenty of space between them for airflow. Once your trays are loaded up, set your temp to 160 degrees Fahrenheit and let it roll. Everyone has a preference on doneness, but generally speaking, you're aiming for a meat that tears apart with no liquid or moisture showing. Some people like to dehydrate their jerky until it's a brittle bit of dust, while others prefer a little chew, and hey, you do you. But if it's still wet, drippy, or shiny, keep it going because it is not ready. This batch took just a little over 2 hours, but times really will vary depending on how thick your pieces are. You'll probably take off some thinner, smaller pieces off first, while the bigger chunks take a little more time, and that's completely normal. Just keep checking on it until everything looks right. I was very happy with how this batch turned out. The non-seasoned pieces were perfect as is. That overnight marinade imparted some really big Cajun flavors, but you could still get a hint of that gator meat taste too. The other pieces that I added my seasoning to definitely had a fiery punch, but they then mellowed out to that same marinade and gator meat taste, which balances out really well. Long story short, if you got your hands on some gator meat, don't fry and grill everything. Give this recipe a go. Make some fantastic jerky and spread the good word of alligator meat with your friends by giving out some as gifts. Or just eat it all yourself. Either way, it's a win. That'll do it for this one, and thank y'all so much for watching. If you have any questions or tips of your own to add, please feel free to leave a comment below. I always try to make myself available to my viewers, and I'll be happy to tackle whatever comments pop up. Now, if you're new to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you considered hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, it certainly helps keep me going, and you'll have access to countless recipes with more great content to come. All right, y'all, take care.